Now, if the request is successful, we want to show a message where we're going to have the formatted address, the coordinates, and the postcode. So to do that, we're going to create a few variables, one of each of these elements. So one variable for the formatted address. Okay. And we're going to use the JSON file to get the formatted address. So the formatted address is right there. Okay. So to access this element, we need to access the JSON file first using the data variable. And then we're going to go inside the results array. Okay. So we're going to be looking at the first element, which is the element of index 0 inside our array. So this element is an object. Okay. And we are looking at the formatted address, which is one option inside this object. So to access the option, we're going to use a dot followed by the name of the option, which is formatted address. All right. Now to get the latitude, let's create a variable latitude. So in the same way, we're going to get the JSON file and then go inside the results array. And then we're looking at the element of index 0. And this time we are looking at the geometry option. Okay. And to get the latitude, we need to go first to location, which is an option of the geometry object. And then latitude, which is an option of location. Okay. And we're going to get the longitude the same way. But instead of latitude there, we're just going to have longitude. Okay. Now let's guess the postcode. So let's create a variable postcode. So if we look at our JSON file, the postcode is right there. So our postcode is inside an object, and it corresponds to one of the options of the object, which is the long name or the short name. So let's say we want to use the long name. So we could be tempted to access this property the same way we have done with the other variables. But the issue we've got here is that there are other objects which also have got a long name property. But the difference between those objects and the one we are looking at is that the types property of this object is postal code. So what we need to do here is cycle through all these objects and check which one is having a types property equal to postal code, and then for that one store the long name, which is the postcode, inside our postcode variable. Okay. So to do this, we're going to use a function called each. So the syntax is $.each. So this function is going to take a couple of parameters. So the first parameter is going to be an array. Okay. So in our case, the array is the address components array. So this array is an array of objects. Okay. So we're going to need to cycle through the objects of this array. So to get that array, we're going to use the data variable, which refers to our JSON file or JSON object. Okay. And then we're going to go to the results array, and we are looking at the elements of index 0 of that array. Okay. And then we are looking at the property address components, okay, which is an array itself. All right. Now the second parameter is going to be a function. So this function is going to have two parameters. So the first parameter is going to be the index of each of these elements as we are cycling through them. And let's call it index. The second parameter is going to be the element itself, which is the objects. Okay, each of these objects. And let's call it elements. Now, what we need to do is, as we are cycling through these objects, we are going to check if the object has got a types property equal to postal code. So if the element's types property is equal to postal code, okay, then we are going to use the long name of that element and store it inside our postcode variable. So we'll set the postcode variable to the element's long name. Okay, and then we'll return false to stop the loop. Okay, okay, let's save this. So now we've got all our variables and we are ready to use them to create our message, okay, and then change the HTML content of our output div. So now let's access the output div. So you're going to use its ID and change its HTML content using the HTML method. Okay. So we're going to start with formatted address. Okay. So let's use b tags to make this bold. Just going to copy that. Okay, and then colon, and now we need the formatted address variable. Which is right there. Okay, and then we're going to have a line break. And then we're going to have the coordinates. I'm going to place it as well inside the b tags to make it bold. Okay, and then colon. So you're going to write latitude, longitude, and then we'll use the latitude and longitude variables. Okay, so latitude, and then we're going to add the latitude variable, and then a dot or comma, and then longitude, and then let's add the longitude variable, and then let's close the parentheses and have a dot and then a line break. Okay, so then we're going to have the postcode, Okay, and finally, let's add a dot at the end of the postcode. Okay, let's check that everything is fine. Okay, let's place this colon outside the tags. Okay. Okay, so let's save and try our code. So if you refresh the page, now if you write an address there, click on the button. Now we can see our message. Okay. Let's try something else. Okay. And it's working. Let's just add a dot at the end of the formatted address. Right there. Okay, let's save and let's try this again. Okay, and if we don't place any address, we get request unsuccessful. Perfect. Now to finish our app, all we need to do is center the map in the address, okay, and also create a marker. So to center the map, we are going to use a method of the map object, which is setCenter. Okay, and we're gonna use an object. Okay, with the latitude and longitude values. So for the latitude, we're gonna use the latitude variable, and for the longitude, we're gonna use the longitude variable. Okay. So let's save and try this. And now you can see that our map is centered in the address. Okay. Now let's change the zoom level. Okay. So to change the zoom level, again, we're gonna use another method of the map object, which is setZoom with capital Z. And let's go for 14. Let's try again. Okay, and perfect, it's working. Now we need to create a marker. Okay. So we're just going to create a variable, call it marker. So we're going to use a constructor for our marker as we did before. So we're going to use the keyword new and then google.maps.marker with capital M. And inside this constructor, we're going to place our markers options. Okay. So first, we want this marker to show on our map. So we're going to set the map property to our maps object. And for the position, we're going to use the same position we used to center our map. Okay. And also let's add some animation so that the marker gets dropped on our map. So for dropping, we use Google.Maps animation capital A and then drop capital letters. So let's save this and try it. And now we can see our marker. Now the issue is if we try again, we're going to have another marker added to our map. And if we try another address, we're going to have even another marker there. Okay, so we're going to end up with too many markers on our map. So to solve this, what we're going to do, we are going to define the variable marker at the beginning of our code. Okay, and inside the code, we are just going to set that variable to the new marker. But before we do that, we are going to check if the marker is there or not. If it's there, we're going to need to delete it. And if it's not there, we're going to create a new marker. So just before creating the marker, we're going to check if marker is there, delete it. So if the marker is there, so if it's there, then it's going to have a value. If it's not there, then it's going to be undefined. So we're checking if the marker is not undefined. Okay. So if it's not undefined, we're going to need to delete it. And to delete a marker, we need to use the method setMap, and we use the value null inside the parameter. Okay, so now if we save this and try again, okay, now let's try another address. So the first marker has been deleted. Okay, and we have only one marker at all times. And our app is now complete. In the next video, we're going to learn how to perform nearby searches using the Google Maps JavaScript API.